All right. We are live. We are live. All right. Sorry about that. We are live. So last night we talked about Nasara. I went over all the points in Nasara, all the components of Nasara, showed you guys some headlines and some actual events that occurred that were, correlated that correlated with Nasara. And I was also going to demonstrate to you guys the connection between Trump and the BRICS nations, mainly Brazil, by way of going over Bolsonaro, former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro's experience as the president and what Brazil experienced during his campaign. Very eerily similar to Trump. And I was also going to point out that Nasara being publicly announced, the mention of Nasara's public announcement, which is actually mentioned. Hold on, let me go up back to the first slide, which was actually mentioned here. Establishes new president. Oh, monitors election. No, here it is. Establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after Nasara's announcement, right? But we heard, those of us who have heard about Nasara before, we heard about it, but we never heard about, and we heard that the public announcement was supposed to happen upon its enactment. And we never stopped to consider that perhaps the public announcement, and shout out to everybody watching on YouTube, shout out to everybody watching on Rumble. Make sure you guys hit that like button, leave a comment in the chat. And if you feel so, inclined, please feel free to support the show with a kind donation. Yes, all is well. All is well. It's just my budget took a really big hit. Let's just say that. The emergency that occurred last night is going to cost me a lot of money. But nevertheless, this is still important because this is still part of my job and part of my work. And, we were getting a lot of support last night. And I hope we can continue that. I hope we can continue that. But nevertheless, we always assumed that Nasara's public announcement would be made here in the United States. But in fact, it was publicly announced, just not domestically in the United States. That's what we have to, that's the part that we missed. And that's what we need to take a look at now. Because for those of us who assumed that the announcement of Nasara was going to happen here in the United States by way of our government officials somehow, well, we were actually mistaken, because the announcement did not happen in the United States, but it did happen somewhere else. And guess where that was? The same place where Bolsonaro was the president, being Brazil. This is why they called Jair Bolsonaro the Brazilian Trump. Now, for those of you who are catching the stream for the first time tonight, if you weren't here last night and you didn't catch the first hour of the show, part one, make sure you guys just go watch the previous video and get that knowledge, get that information into your memory banks, and that will carry you through tonight's show, and then it will all make sense, because I had the whole show queued up. It was supposed to be one continuous show like I always do, but because of what happened last night, I had to cut it short. And, since I got, I have other stuff, I want to go into some flat earth stuff on Wednesday. So since I'm battling with that and trying to maneuver that, I figured I might as well just fire it up tonight and get it out of the way, right? Just get this information out, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So now that we are here, let's go ahead and I don't know why I got so much mucus in my throat. Let's go ahead and just get these promos out of the way. The Citizen Man Backup Channel. Make sure you subscribe. Self-Credit Builder. Sign up for Self-Credit Builder. Fix your credit score. Put yourself on a path to a brighter financial future. Rumble. Yeah, we're going to skip the music and just get right into it, because we're already getting off to a late start and whatnot. So we're just going to get into it so we can get this information out. Rumble, create a Rumble account. It's fast and free, and you can also comment on the videos, make your own content, share the videos, like the videos, comment in the live chat, and create your own content. Okay, get yourself a copy of the Lost Book of Herbal Remedies, Metabolic Cooking for the weight loss recipes, and Anabolic Cooking for the muscle recipes. Each one of your purchase of each one of these books actually helps to support the show, and it's a cool addition to your library. So keep that in mind when you make your decision as to which how you plan on supporting the show or how you intend on supporting the Citizen Man operation. Now, PayPal is still under attack, and PayPal is going to be shut down for a while. So I actually removed the PayPal links, the PayPal tags from the banner scrolling across the screen, and the banner scrolling across the screen at the bottom there. And I also decided to put this big red X over the P for PayPal to symbolize PayPal is no longer being utilized, and I can no longer accept any donations. They won't allow me to receive money, send money, or withdraw money. So if I had money in there, I would have been screwed. And this is why they're trying to ask me for all my information and whatnot, like they don't already know who I am. And their game plan is to basically hold your money hostage, squeeze the information out of you. Once they get the information, then maybe they'll release your money. But I've heard horror stories of PayPal stealing people's money left and right. So I don't keep money in there. So any PayPal donations that I've gotten in the past during the shows, I actually went ahead and cashed it out. So currently my PayPal balance is at $0.00. So guess what? They can kiss my ass. They're not getting my information. They can have it. But for those of you guys who are still interested, willing, and able to support the show, I really appreciate you guys coming out and, helping to keep this movement moving, funding this war, in the words of Hassan Campbell, and keeping the Citizen Man operation afloat. And I want to give a shout out to my to my donors from last night: Kyle Hudson, Brother Lee 14224 with 6 faithful fives for all the faithful fives that PayPal has blocked from the last 6 shows. Shout out to Helen. Shout out to Antonio. Shout out to William. Big shout out to William. I didn't notice this until after I shut the show down, but William actually dropped a whole 100 on the Cash App. So he really got us up to that goal, which means a double up was well on the way. But of course, family first, got to take care of business. Can't be on the internet, preaching and broadcasting when the world's crumbling around me. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta find a way to balance things, balance work and family. But the donation portals are still open. If you want to support the show, the links are in the tagged at the top and pinned to the top of the YouTube chat. And you can use the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below, or find the links in the description box of every video. Just don't use that PayPal link. Well, you can't use it anyway, because if you try to send me money, PayPal might either steal it and say I have to give it back to you, or they just might not let you send it at all. So don't even waste your time. Don't even waste your time, because if there were people out there trying to put 20s and 50s and 100s on the PayPal, they're probably going to steal it from you to discourage you from donating to me, because that's their end goal. It's an economic attack. It's got nothing to do with public safety. It's got nothing to do with suspected terrorism and none of that shit, because anybody with half a brain could read that comment that Brother Lee left me, and there's nothing questionable about it. But because PayPal is ran by the same people that want us all silenced and want us all shut down, well, of course, they're going to grasp at straws and they're going to make up things. I mean, I already told you guys about how YouTube made up a lie saying that I was encouraging violence when I did a whole stream literally discouraging violence, just so they can have an excuse to flag me. So they don't play fair. They don't play nice. And now that the election is coming up, they're going to start playing even dirtier. And it's already happening. It's only April and it's already happening. So shout out to you guys who supported the show last night. And I appreciate anybody in advance who plans on supporting the show tonight. Now, speaking of last night, I did show you guys this headline here about Israel, right? Because this is part of what the BRICS bloc is doing. They're taking down the Rothschild banking system and the Federal Reserve system. And part of that is by taking down the Israeli or the Zionist regime. And the Zionist regime has been committing brazen acts of genocide against the Palestinian people since October 7th, and they have not stopped, and they're still using October 7th of last year as an excuse to continue with these atrocities. And it's gotten so bad that Israeli officials believe International Criminal Court is preparing arrest warrants over the war. And South Africa, one of the biggest BRICS nations, one of the original BRICS nations, was actually the nation that brought these charges before the International Criminal Court against Israel, accusing them of genocide. And you remember what I told you about how Israel is going to be allowed to run wild, and then they're going to be taken down internally by their own people because there's turmoil in in Israel, and the people of Israel, the actual Israeli people, do not like their government, do not trust or support what their government is doing. These are actions directly from the Zionist regime without the consent of the Palestinian people or their own Israeli people. And the Israeli people are actually in an uproar right now against their government. Ben Gvir is I think he's the president of Israel, and Netanyahu is the prime minister. I think that's how it goes. But Keith Truther tweeted this. Seems like big problems going on in Israel with their own people. Ben Gvir is being attacked by Israelis. The mainstream media won't show you this, but Israel is erupting from within. And I've been seeing snippets and articles like this for a very, very long time. And this comes as no surprise, but I'm sharing this with you guys because I want you guys to see that what I've been telling you about Israel having internal struggles is absolutely true, and this is your confirmation. So you can say what you want, but the truth is the truth, and the facts are the facts, and there's no way around it. The Israeli people are turning against their own government, and they are the ones who are going to take down the Israeli government, while simultaneously having the government being attacked by Iran and the other neighboring Muslim nations who the Zionist regime has been terrorizing for basically the majority of most of our lifetimes. All right. So Israel is in turmoil. There's your confirmation. Now, you remember the pictures of the body doubles that I showed you guys, the side by sides, and I told you this whole political situation in America, it's all one big show to wake the people up. Well, here's Kim Jong-un, another world leader. He's the president of North Korea. And this is what he says about Ukrainian President Zelensky. Yes, the same Ukraine that Congress, Democrats and Republicans, are giving our tax money away to. The same Ukraine whose President Zelensky was photographed in a picture, was videotaped in a walking through the royal, I guess the presidential palace, or the Ukrainian equivalent of the White House. And he had his body double in tow walking right behind him, and I grabbed a screenshot of it. I've shown you guys this, so I don't have to show it again. But look at what Kim Jong-un says. North Korea says Ukrainian President Zelensky is an actor who plays his role well in the U.S. written screenplay. So again, you guys hear me say this is all one big show, and I've been saying it for a long time. You've heard other people say it. Now we have an actual world leader saying the same thing. Why would he refer to this whole political spectacle as a U.S. written screenplay? Because that's exactly what it is. And remember, Kim Jong-un is pretty close to Trump, right? They had a pretty close relationship. Started off rough in the beginning, but they got cool, and now they're actually pretty cool, and Kim Jong-un is rocking with Trump. But how are they putting on this show? I mean, I reported to you guys about the missing celebrities and how they replaced them with CGI images and lookalikes and body doubles and CIA skin masks and all that nonsense. Well, here's an example of how easy it is to fool people with video technology and deep fake trickery. Fans replaced Lil Yachty's legendary walkout with the Joker. Now, the picture at the bottom is a rapper by the name of Lil Yachty. I think he might be on the spectrum. He sounds a little retarded, like his tongue is a little heavy. But there was this iconic video of him at this concert where thousands of people came out to watch him perform. And he kind of walked out on stage and did a dance and stuff. And, had a great stage presence. It was an awesome show. The music sucked, but the showmanship was great. And somebody took the Joker and superimposed the image of the Joker over Lil Yachty and had the Joker's body actually mimicking every move that Lil Yachty made in the video. So they basically took the figure of Lil Yachty in the video and turned it into the Joker figure. Now, if they can do that, right? If it's possible for fans, individuals who don't even have the amount of resources and tools at their disposal as the US, as the military would have, right? If they can do that, imagine how good and how deceptive the military or the US government how good they would be at pulling off a stunt like this and making people believe that these videos of these celebrities that we're seeing are actually real. I mean, I've shown you guys the deep fake videos, the deep fake technology, the BBC admitting that they use the deep fake to project Queen Elizabeth on TV for a Christmas speech. So don't ask me why these celebrities are still around and showing up in videos and all that shit. This is why. This is a prime example of the CGI. So this is more confirmation that it is quite possible that what I've been telling you about this whole political spectacle being a show and these people actually being missing and replaced with CGI avatars is true. There's your confirmation. If they could do it with Lil Yachty, guess what? They can do it with Barack Obama. They can do it with Will Smith. They can do it with Ludacris. They can do it with P. Diddy. They can do it with anybody. Brother Lee says, glad everything is all right. Thanks for coming back with this message of hope. 2 faithful fives on Wednesday for next show. Appreciate you, Brother Lee. Thank you for stopping by and leaving a comment in the Rumble chat, and any other Rumblers that aren't too shy. Please leave a comment in the live chat. That stimulates the algorithm, gets more viewers to the show. So let's stimulate that algorithm. And you YouTubers, I need you guys to do the same thing. Same thing on Rumble. Hit the thumbs up, comment in the chat. On YouTube, hit the thumbs up, comment in the chat. That's our secret weapon. That's how we grow the channel. That's how we grow the platform. All right. Now, so again, now after we've seen this confirmation of it all being a show, the show only applies to the federal level. This is why the federal Congress has not passed any laws governing the people, because they don't have the power to. But the states themselves have the power to pass laws, and they're still passing laws. Tennessee passes death penalty for child rapists. 19 representatives voted against it, all Democrats. They support killing unborn babies and abortion, but not child rapists. Let that sink in. Yes, again, every time this legislation this type of legislation comes to the House, comes to the floor of the House floors in these states, you always have Democrats voting against what's moral and just and supporting what's immoral and debaucherous. I mean, it's a commonality at this point. But when you see the Republicans on key issues not fighting hard enough against the Democrats, or you see them siding with the Democrats, like with the aid money for Ukraine and Israel and whatnot, and Taiwan, well, that lets us know that although the Republican Party on the state level is doing a stellar job on behalf of the people, the Republican Party on the federal level is actually working. They seem to be actually working against the people, so much so that there's been a rash of Republicans in recent years coming out against Donald Trump. They even created the Never Trumper group, the Never Trumper movement, which is insane, because never in the history of any president of the United States have we seen his own party turn on him. But yes, the states still have the powers to pass laws. Now, Trump, when he was in office, he went around and started, forming all these alliances with the nations that wanted to, Jesus Christ, with the nations that wanted to break away from the New World Order, reestablish their sovereignty, and have free and fair elections so the people of those nations can actually govern those nations. North Korea was one nation, but North Korea has a totally different system of government. So I don't know how that's going to work out as far as the people having power. I don't think the people in North Korea are ever going to have power because it's a dynasty. But in Russia, Vladimir Putin has actually exiled the entire New World Order out of his country. And when they moved in on Ukraine, all the last bit of corruption to leave Russia was all these major corporations that had set up shop and were operating in Russia. They decided to shut down and move out of Russia because, well, we support Ukraine and we don't support the Russian aggression against the Ukraine, when the Russian aggression against the Ukraine was to, one, get rid of the Nazis that Obama put in power in Ukraine, two, shut down the child organ trafficking and organ harvesting labs, and three, shut down the bio labs where they were cooking up these bioweapons that they tell us is magic medicine, right? And Q has kind of been walking us through the entire process from since 2017. And Q has been a very integral part in getting the message out and reminding the people who your enemies are. Excuse me. Who your friends are and what the agenda is on both sides, from our allies and our enemies. And here's a little bit of Q proof. The first ever wingsuit flight into the crater of an active volcano. And it's from Russian state affiliated media. And look at the helicopter. It's got a bunch of Qs all over it. And funny enough, there was a picture of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the military all holding mugs with the letter Q on it. And Trump's been throwing out Q hints for a very, very long time. And people have been slowly but surely catching on. So the confirmation is there. Now, we haven't seen any Q stuff out of Brazil from Bolsonaro like that, but we have seen Bolsonaro make moves and act in ways that are eerily similar to Donald Trump. And that's because the BRICS nations formed alliances with Donald Trump, and the BRICS nations, their plan is to implement the quantum financial system, which squeezes out the fiat currency nations because all trade will be conducted in local currencies that are gold backed or backed by precious metals. And not only that, but they have their BRICS Development Bank, which is like the World Bank and the IMF that loans money to the G7 nations. That's what we're going to call the fiat nations, the G7 nations. But the BRICS nations, they would loan money to them at exorbitantly high interest rates that they can't pay back. And those countries, end up falling into disrepair. The people go into poverty. And then when the loans are defaulted, the World Bank and the IMF sells off that country's assets to the highest bidder. And then you have these foreign corporations moving into these nations, taking over their infrastructure, taking over their ports, taking over their power grid and so on, and further impoverishing the people so these executives and these elites could get rich off the people's backs. Well, the BRICS said no more. And the BRICS nations have been perfecting their use of the quantum financial system, digitizing their currencies and switching them to gold-backed currencies. And as these moves have been made, the BRICS nations' GDP has actually been increasing significantly. And if you look at these blue bars, the G7 nations are at the top: the US, Canada, Japan, France, Italy, UK, and Germany. And if you look at their GDP growth forecast for 2024, the US is at 2.7%, Canada is 1.2%, Japan is 0.9%, France is 0.7%, Italy 0.7%, Britain is 0.5%, and Germany is 0.2%. And what do all these nations have in common? What all these nations have in common are liberal politicians running the countries into the ground, basically, pushing communism and socialism and the whole woke agenda, which is actually destroying local businesses. And the tax the rich ideology, which is destroying local businesses, eroding their taxpayer base, and people no longer want to do business with these countries or within these countries. And so their GDP growth rates have sort of stagnated. As opposed to the BRICS nations, India, China, UAE, Iran, Russia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, South Africa, and Ethiopia, their GDP growth rates are much higher, ranging from 0.9% all the way up to 6.8% in India. So the BRICS nations are becoming the new world economic, the new world economic powers, and their power and wealth is surpassing that of the G7 fiat currencies. All right. Now, we talked about the alternative energy and the free energy technology. Well, solar panels are absolutely not free. They cost a lot of money, but they are surprisingly efficient, and these solar farms actually work quite well. But we've been seeing strategic attempts by the New World Order elites to chemtrail the hell out of the skies, create clouds, so these solar panels don't get direct sunlight. Well, little did they know, the solar panels are actually powerful enough and absorbent enough to collect energy or harness energy from the daylight. So as long as it's daylight out, your solar panels and these solar farms can produce energy. So how do you stop the energy production from expanding, or how do you make it seem illegitimate? Because I don't like these solar farms. I'll tell you right now, I'm not a fan of these solar farms, but it is much cleaner energy and it's much better for the environment, if we're going to argue that, than burning fossil fuels. But these solar farms take up large swaths of land that could be used as viable farmland. And that's where, that's where I have my problems. That's where I have my problem. But just to show you that these solar farms they have some legitimacy, Brazil, one of the BRICS nations, one of the original BRICS nations, actually has 17% of their electricity harnessed from solar power. So they're really going green with the shit. They're not just talking it and proposing new taxes. They're actually doing it. But this is a solar farm in Texas, and it was destroyed by a hailstorm. What better to destroy solar panels than cracking the glass with hail? Hail cripples massive solar farm, sparking resident concern about vulnerable green technology. Solar farm developer confirms the project is running at reduced capacity as a result of the storm. So it seems like the New World Order elites and the puppets have found a way to sabotage the clean energy programs. I mean, they built these shitty windmills and try to put them up, and they kill the birds and fall apart all the time. They, encourage people to get solar panels, and solar panels don't work they don't work as well because, one, we ain't getting full sunlight because of all the chemtrailing, and two, one hailstorm and your power is out. So there's some weaknesses and vulnerabilities there with the solar panels. I think what they should do to protect the solar panels is probably put a nice thick layer of plexiglass over the solar panels with about maybe a 1 or 2 inch spacing between the panel itself and the protective covers. So that way, when a hailstorm comes, the covers will be destroyed and not the actual solar panel lenses themselves. There's a thought, because plexiglass is very cheap. But an onslaught of hail in southeastern Texas that destroyed large portions of a massive solar farm is highlighting the perils of trading traditional power sources for vulnerable green alternatives and sparking concern about the potential for chemical leaks from the broken panels. You see how Fox News, the sellouts at Fox News, and yes, there are some sellouts. You see how in the first paragraph they start off by highlighting that green alternatives are vulnerable, and farm is highlighting the perils of traditional power sources for vulnerable. Oh, the perils of trading. Yeah, so they say they're basically saying traditional power sources are more reliable, which they probably are. But they cost us more money than they should cost us, because if the earth is an energy generator and energy is produced for free on earth, why the hell are we paying them to give it to us and not building these devices ourselves? Aerial footage captured the significant damage suffered by the Fighting Jays solar farm in Fort Bend County, Texas. The March 15th storm shattered, and this is from March 15th. This is old. Shattered hundreds of panels and prompted a nearby resident to question if the solar panels were leaking chemicals, such as cadmium telluride, which is linked to serious health risks in humans. It's funny. Kia got a vehicle called the Telluride. That's funny. The Fort Bend County Environmental Health Department is investigating the incident, and the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality has also been contacted regarding any potential chemical contamination. Needville Mayor Chad Nesvadba told Fox News Digital, Fort Bend County officials didn't respond to multiple requests for comment. So the hailstorm knocked out the solar panels. They're trying to cripple the green energy movement. And also it's been the real green energy movement, the true clean energy movement, has actually been co-opted by the liberal politicians, and they turned it into climate change and protecting the planet from its own weather for some reason. Meanwhile, they're the ones manipulating the weather. So how does that make any sense? But that's just an example of how they had launched these attacks to shut down initiatives that would move people away from the traditional power structure, demonopolizing the power companies and making energy generation affordable for everybody. But again, Brazil's got 17% of its power grid on solar power. So if Brazil were to suffer some sort of hailstorm the way that county in Texas, that solar farm in Texas suffered, Brazil would probably go under overnight. But they're still being dragged down by the corrupt establishment that runs that country. So let's take a look at Jair Bolsonaro. Jair Bolsonaro, president of Brazil from 2019 to 2022. Jair Bolsonaro is a Brazilian politician and retired military officer who served as the 38th president of Brazil from 2019 to 2022. Jair Bolsonaro is actually also commonly referred to as the Donald Trump of Brazil. I'm sure you guys have heard that saying before if you know who Jair Bolsonaro is. But this is why the establishment got mad at Bolsonaro, because the same plan that Trump was implementing here in America, get rid of the sex traffickers, the human traffickers. Remember, John of God, Oprah's best friend, he went down under Bolsonaro's administration. And the government in Brazil, they're not happy with they weren't happy with Bolsonaro either, so much so that they literally stole the election from him and had him barred from running in any elections for the next 8 years. Isn't that exactly what they're trying to do to Trump? Brazil guts agencies sabotaging environmental protection in Amazon report. And this is from Manga Bay. Now, the gutting of the agencies is defunding these wasteful government agencies that exist for no purpose other than draining the taxpayers' hard-earned money. And because there's so many individuals in these agencies that profit greatly and draw a huge salary from these agencies, well, they definitely don't want to see these agencies abolished. So, of course, Bolsonaro, he has drawn the ire of many in the political realm by doing that. But let's see what else. A new report documents draconian budget cuts to Brazilian environmental monitoring and firefighting of 9.8% in 2020 and 27.4% in 2021. Reductions analysts say that were in 2021. Reductions analysts say that analysts say that we're inflicted by the Bolsonaro administration in a clear policy for dismantling national environmental policies. And those environmental policies aren't being upheld, and they will do nothing to stop the world from being polluted if all nations aren't on one accord with that. Because if we're regulating our emissions and our plastic dumping into the oceans, and we are able to reduce it with the technology our fellow Americans were able to innovate and create, we still got China, and India and those other nations pumping out billions of gallons of smog almost every day. Brazil's environmental agencies under Bolsonaro have also been subjected to nearly 600 administrative and rules changes invoked by a presidential executive order and resulting in massive environmental deregulation. Under Bolsonaro, deforestation has soared with an increase of 34% in the last 2 years, even as capacity to punish environmental criminals fell sharply due to funding shortages. Fines imposed for illegal deforestation instead of rising during this Amazon environmental crime wave fell by 42% from 2019 to 2020. Faced with Bolsonaro's gutting of the environmental agencies and protections, two indigenous leaders, Kayapo Chief Roni Metu Qatar, and Peter Suri, Chief Almir Narayamoga Suri, have asked the International Criminal Court (ICC) in The Hague to investigate President Bolsonaro for crimes against humanity. Now, isn't this the same thing they're doing to Trump? Try to steal the election from him, try to censor him, try to have him arrested, try to prevent him from running for president. Well, none of that's going to work because not only have they done all that, but they've actually tried to kill Bolsonaro as they have tried to kill Trump. Here is this article from June 15th, 2019, says Brazilian judge acquits man who stabbed Jair Bolsonaro. So this man stabbed Jair Bolsonaro and the judge acquitted him, claiming mental deficiency. But here's my problem. He wasn't mentally deficient when he grabbed that knife, picked his target, and decided who to plunge that knife into. He wasn't mentally deficient when he was hired by whoever hired him to carry out that hit. But now they have to call him mentally deficient and throw him under the bus and not prosecute him. I mean, let him get a free ride and not prosecute him, because prosecuting this man will reflect poorly on law enforcement. It's going to show how corrupt they are, because this guy was in league with a lot of cops. But the fact that they call him a crazy man means when he tries to tell on them, they'll just say he's a crazy person, not to listen to him, and people are going to fall for it. But just like how Jair Bolsonaro had an attempt on his life, here's a stream that I did 2 years ago on March 16th, and it says 25 plus attempts on Trump's life. And in this stream, all we covered were the 25 plus attempts on Trump's life, all the way down to his Secret Service protection agents dying, trying to protect him from the poisons and whatnot. A Brazilian judge has acquitted a man who stabbed then presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro. The judge ruled that Adelio Bispo de Oliveira was mentally ill and ordered him held in a mental health facility indefinitely, the Associated Press reports. Jair Bolsonaro was campaigning for president on September 6, 2018, and Juiz de Fora, about 115 miles north of Rio de Janeiro, when he was attacked. 2018 on September 6, 2018, in Juiz de Fora, about 115 miles north of Rio de Janeiro, when he was attacked. NPR's Philip Reeves reported that Bolsonaro was getting on a supporter's shoulders when an assailant plunged a blade into his stomach. The man reportedly told investigators he was acting on the orders of God, Reeves reported. Yeah, he was acting on somebody's orders, and it wasn't God. The attack damaged Bolsonaro's intestines and required a 2-hour surgery to stop internal bleeding. After the attack, Bispo confessed and Bolsonaro won the October elections despite spending 3 weeks of the campaign in hospital, NPR reported. Voters supported the retired Army captain's anti-corruption message, despite his record of disparaging women, the LGBT community, and people of color. What? Bolsonaro never did that. I don't even know why they're even telling this lie. But again, it's NPR, so of course they're going to lie, because Bolsonaro is the Brazilian Trump. Judge Bruno Savina ruled Friday that Bispo would be held in a mental facility within the federal prison system, the AP reports. The hospitalization will last for an indefinite period until medical experts have proven that he is no longer dangerous, Savino said in a statement, according to the AP. Bolsonaro has vowed to overturn the decision. The BBC reports Bolsonaro told local media, "I will contact my lawyer. I will try to do whatever is possible." Brazil's leader has suggested the attack was politically motivated and says he will find the culprit behind what he believes is a conspiracy. They tried to kill me. I am certain who they were, but I can't say. I don't want to prejudice anyone, the BBC reported him saying. So Bolsonaro knew who was after him and knows who attacked him. But again, 25 plus attempts on Trump's life. Bolsonaro, there was an actual attempt on his life. So there's your correlation. There's the first hallmark of your alliance. All right. Now, because of these alliances, the big banks are losing power. JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America suffer $4.5 trillion in losses as unrecoverable debt soars. Hey, R&B Bay, good to see you, beautiful. So these big banks are definitely going down. They're losing money at breakneck speed. They're closing locations. We've seen all those locations close down. And they are really just trying to keep the lights on and keep it together. Now, here's an interesting article from the New York Times, and it says, the Bolsonaro-Trump connection threatening Brazil's elections. So because Bolsonaro said there's fraud in the elections and they might steal the election from me due to fraud, now all of a sudden, the elections are legitimate, not to be questioned, just like 2020. The conference hall was packed with a crowd of more than 1,000 cheering attacks on the press, the liberals, and the politically correct. That sounds like Trump, don't it? There was Donald Trump Jr. warning that the Chinese could meddle in the election, a Tennessee congressman who voted against certifying the 2020 vote, and the president complaining about voter fraud. In many ways, the September gathering looked like just another CPAC, the conservative political conference, but it was happening in Brazil. Most of it was in Portuguese, and the president at the lectern was Jair Bolsonaro, the country's right-wing leader. Fresh from their assault on the results of the 2020 presidential election, former President Donald J. Trump and his allies are exporting their strategy to Latin America's largest democracy, working to support Mr. Bolsonaro's bid for re-election next year, and helping sow doubt in the electoral process in the event that he loses. They are branding his political rivals as criminals and communists, building new social networks where he can avoid Silicon Valley's rules against misinformation and amplify his claims that the election in Brazil was stolen. So they stole an election from the man. They tried to kill the man. He goes in on the media and the liberals, just like Trump. For the American ideologues pushing a right-wing nationalist movement, Brazil is one of the most important pieces on the global chessboard. With 2.1 million people, it is the world's sixth largest nation. Excuse me. The dominant force in South America, and home to an overwhelmingly Christian population that continues to shift to the right. Brazil also represents a rich economic opportunity with abundant natural resources and made more available by Mr. Bolsonaro's rollback of regulations and a captive market for the new right-wing social networks run by Mr. Trump and others. For the Brazilian president, who finds himself increasingly isolated on the world stage and unpopular at home, the American support is a welcome boost. The Trump name is a rallying cry for Brazil's new right and his efforts to undermine the U.S. electoral system appear to have inspired and emboldened Mr. Bolsonaro and his supporters. But Brazil is already a deeply divided nation where the institutions safeguarding democracy are more vulnerable to attack. The adoption of Mr. Trump's methods is adding fuel to a political tinderbox and could prove destabilizing in a country with a history of political violence and military rule. Bolsonaro is already putting it into people's heads that he won't accept the election if he loses, said David Nemer, a University of Virginia professor from Brazil who studies the country's far right. In Brazil, this can get out of hand. Stephen Bannon, Mr. Trump's former chief strategist, has said President Bolsonaro will only lose if the machines steal the election. Representative Mark Green, a Tennessee Republican who has published laws combating voter fraud, met with lawmakers in Brazil to discuss voting integrity policies. And President Bolsonaro's son, Eduardo Bolsonaro, gave perhaps his most elaborate presentation on what he said were manipulated Brazilian elections in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He was at an August event hosted by Mike Lindell, the Pillow executive being sued for defaming voting machine makers. Sorry. So Bolsonaro bears a lot of the signs of Trump. That's what I'm seeing here. So we're not going to dig through this whole entire article, but you guys can check it out. It's from the New York Times, and it's called The Bolsonaro-Trump Connection, Threatening Brazil's Elections. So make sure you go check it out. Now, because Bolsonaro is the Donald Trump of Brazil and is working on recreating Brazil as a constitutional republic, well, Jair Bolsonaro has been barred from running for office for 8 years. And this is exactly what those liberal lefties want to do to Trump. They want to bar him from running for office, and they want to put their puppets in place. Well, it ain't going to happen. Brazil's highest electoral court has barred former President Jair Bolsonaro from running for political office until 2030 after finding him guilty of abusing his power and misusing public media during last year's election campaign. 5 out of the 7 judges found the former president guilty, effectively ending any hope of a political comeback in the forthcoming 2006 elections. Two of the judges voted against the decision, which prevents Bolsonaro from running for public office for 8 years. 8 years they're trying to keep this man out of office. That's crazy. The case stems from a meeting Bolsonaro held with foreign ambassadors in July 2022, which he spread false information about Brazil's electoral system and brought its credibility into question ahead of last year's fractious election. The meeting was live streamed by official television channels and on YouTube. YouTube took down the live stream of the event for not complying with its fake news policy. Judge Alexander de Moraes, who presided over the court, cast his vote last. Let us reaffirm our faith in our democracy and the rule of law, he said, after voting in favor of the guilty verdict. That's crazy. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. Whoever's yawning out there, hit the Cash App. Bolsonaro has denied any wrongdoing. Speaking to Brazilian radio station Itaia on Friday, Bolsonaro said he planned to appeal the court's decision. The far-right politician lost the election. Why do they keep calling him far-right? Why don't they just call him the conservative? The far-right margin in decades to current President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Riots on January 8th saw pro-Bolsonaro protesters breaking into government buildings in Brasilia. Former weeks of demonstrations over the election results. Following weeks of demonstrations over the election results. The case at the Superior Electoral Court began with a lawsuit brought by Brazil's Democratic Party leader against both Bolsonaro and Walter Braga Neto, his running mate in the 2022 elections. The majority of judges voted to find Brigada Neto not guilty. During the meeting with ambassadors, the former president allegedly said the 2022 elections might be compromised due to fraud, according to a report by Judge Bendito Conclaves. Bolsonaro also allegedly said that in 2018, voting machines had changed voters' choices to benefit his opponent, and that the Brazilian voting machines are not auditable, while insulating the electoral and judicial authorities were protecting terrorists, the report added. Such claims of flaws in the electoral system have all been denied by Brazil's electorate. The case at the Superior Electoral Court is one of several cases against the former president. So they got all these cases against Bolsonaro. They got all these cases against Trump. And the goal is to keep them both from running for office, because if Bolsonaro is implementing Trump's plan in Brazil, Trump's plan is going to end up being worldwide, or at least amongst the BRICS bloc. Okay? So Bolsonaro and Trump actually share quite a bit of similarities. They actually share a lot of similarities. And it's not hard to tell, at least not for me. Let me see. Holy cow, guys. Golly gee, I think we are at the end of the slideshow. I think we made it to the end of the slideshow. So you got this guy who the judge acquitted, who stabbed Bolsonaro at his rally, claiming he's mentally ill. A Brazilian judge has acquitted a man who stabbed then presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro. The judge ruled that Adelo Bispo de Oliveira was mentally ill and ordered him held in a mental facility indefinitely, the Associated Press reports. Jair Bolsonaro was campaigning for president on September 6, 2018 in Ruiz de Fora, about 115 miles north of Rio de Janeiro, when he was attacked. NPR's Philip Reeves reported that Bolsonaro was sitting on a supporter's shoulders when an assailant plunged a blade into his stomach. The man reportedly told investigators he was acting on the orders of God, Reeves reported. The attack damaged Bolsonaro's intestines and required a 2-hour surgery. Wait, did I read this already? I damn sure did read this shit already. What the hell am I doing? Judge Bruno Savino ruled Friday that Bispo would be held in a mental facility within the federal prison system. The AP reported the hospitalization will last for an indefinite period until medical experts have proven he's no longer dangerous, Savino said in a statement, according to the AP. Bolsonaro has vowed to overturn the decision. The BBC reports Bolsonaro told local media, excuse me, I will contact my lawyer. I will try to do whatever is possible. Brazil's leader has suggested the attack was politically motivated and says he will find the culprit behind what he believes is a conspiracy. Then tried to kill me. They tried to kill me. I am certain who they were, but I can't say. I don't want to prejudice anyone. The BBC reported him saying. The acquittal comes as Bolsonaro contends with the first general strike of his presidency. Thousands of people filled the streets on Friday to protest budget cuts and pensions reform. NPR's Philip Reeves reports that unions and opposition groups held demonstrations and blocked roads, and police fired tear gas at protesters. Well, just so you know, if you're ever going to participate in one of these protests, don't go block the road, because that is a crime called impeding traffic, and it is an arrestable offense. Thousands of people filled the streets on Friday to protest budget cuts and pensions reform. NPR's Philip Reeves. Oh, I read this already. I read that already. What am I doing? So some guy stabs Bolsonaro. There's 25 plus attempts on Trump's life. China is bringing the crimes against humanity's charges against Israel, along with several other nations. And I believe that the Western United States is going to join the Eastern United States, no matter where we are, to try to fend off an attack from a 19th century army. But nevertheless, Jair Bolsonaro is the man. Jair Bolsonaro is the Brazilian Donald Trump. And what you see being announced here, you see that? This is in Brazil, ladies and gentlemen, at a public event. Nasara Jassara, big ass bold letters on big ass all cap letters on the screen. And it's got a caption at the bottom that's written in Portuguese, but I believe there's a translation. Oh shit. He's doing that. Shit. Hold on. Reset Financiero Mundial. So financial reset is what it's saying. The announcement of Nasara Jassara in Brazil. So Nasara Jassara was publicly announced, just not in the United States, but rather it was publicly announced in Brazil. But nevertheless, we've been waiting for it to be publicly announced, and it has been. The announcement of Nasara Jassara in Brazil. Something is going on in Brazil. A loose translation in regard to the audio posted with the video on Era Dorado channel. People have gathered in Bogota from various South American countries. They are saying that exchanges have started as of yesterday, July 1st. They say that they put the video and message out because there have been so many trolls and negative influencers trying to destroy the hope of the people trying to do humanitarian work. That they are showing this video to prove that this is real and is happening and is the Lord's work and the Lord's will. So Brazil publicly announces Nasara Jassara. And Ariel says they're laying it all out in Brazil right now. It doesn't get any more bold than this. There's your public announcement of Nasara and Jassara. Now we're going to start to see more things happening and things accelerate. Okay? But again, the public announcement came from none other than Vladimir Putin himself. So when it comes to the Trump-Bolsonaro connection, they're actually one and the same. And the point of me covering Jair Bolsonaro was to prove to you that all the shit that he's being put through in his own country is damn near equivalent to the same crap Donald Trump has been having to eat for the last 8 years. Because when you go against the establishment, no matter how evil or corrupt it is, if they're larger than you, they'll take you over. Excuse me. Now I got to back up a little bit to catch where I was now. Don't go block the road because that is a crime called impeding. Go block the road because that is a. Oh man, I am so tired, guys. I am so tired, but we are at the end of the slideshow. And the whole point of this is to show you that Donald Trump formed the alliances, supported the BRICS nations, supports what the BRICS nations are doing, gave them their homework to do on Nasara, so we can come back and have a discussion. But based on this GDP projected growth chart, the BRICS are vastly outpacing the G7 nations. Again, which I think is awesome. I think it's the best thing in the world because the BRICS nations are going to trigger the financial reset, so to speak. Not in a bad way, but in a very good way. But anyway, guys, I'm yawning a little too much. Barnes Homestead says, what's the deal with Trump and DeSantis? I think Donald Trump and DeSantis are playing a role. It's just like WWF. When the fighters get in the ring, all of a sudden it's on. But when they outside the ring, they slap five, go to lunch with each other, laugh with each other, all that shit. What's up, William? What's the deal with Trump and DeSantis? Well, I think Trump likes DeSantis and respects DeSantis, but I don't think it goes any further than that. I don't think it goes any, because DeSantis isn't one of his kids, so he don't have to love him. But anyway, guys, I apologize to those of you who came in late. But if you want to catch part one, just go to the stream in my comment in my content section. Right below this stream, you should find it. All right. I'm literally dozing. It's raining outside. Can you guys hear the rain? Because it's raining outside. So, again, Nasara has been publicly announced, just not publicly announced here in the United States like we thought. Jair Bolsonaro was attempting to do the same thing in Brazil that Trump was doing, but the corrupt establishment in Brazil was able to basically shut him out from being president again, so they can continue with their crimes, continue with their nonsense, continue with their crap, and continue forcing the rest of us to be dependent on their crap. But if we can't do trade with them because they're all dealing in gold-backed currency, guess what happens? Oh, crap. Forcing the rest of us to be dependent on their crap. But if we can't do trade with them because they're all dealing in gold-backed currency, guess what happens? So Nasara Jasara is a real thing. It's not a myth. It's not a conspiracy theory. We see it playing out. We see it being acted out by the actors on the U.S. government screenplay. We see the CGI, the body doubles that don't look alike, and so on. But man, I think this rain is putting me to sleep. Can you guys hear it? Government screenplay. We see. You guys might actually be able to hear it a little bit, but I'm literally like, if I pause for too long, I take long blinks and I'm starting to doze, man. That's crazy. That is crazy shit. So Nasara is basically the saving grace of the people to reestablish the government to protect the rights of the people rather than take away the rights of the people in the name of expanding its power, because it should never have the power to expand, period. But anyway, R&B Bay says I need to leave because I said I got to shut it down because I'm getting tired. And I think she said yes in the chat to agree with me. So shout out to you, R&B Bay. We did put in a good solid hour tonight. We got everything covered. The attacks on the alternative energy, that's what I'll call it. The attacks on Jair Bolsonaro and Bolsonaro's attacks on the establishment operations in Brazil. Oh, you guys saying yes, you can hear the rain. Yeah, it's pretty loud. I really just want to kick back and just catch some Z's, man. But it's coming down real heavy. But anyway, now that you have a better understanding of Nasara, now that you've seen the components of Nasara being activated and other moves being made worldwide in order to position more nations to join the BRICS, well, Nasara would be necessary. And I don't think any country would have a problem, any nation of people would have a problem Hang on, I'm just losing my train of thought, man, like crazy. Let me see.
Now that you've seen the components of NESARA being activated and other rules being made worldwide in order to position more nations to join the BRICS, well, NESARA would be necessary.
Because what the New World Order nations are going to do is they're going to try to join the BRICS, and then they're going to try to infiltrate the BRICS nations at the top, and then they're going to try to cause chaos and be shit stirrers. But anyway, guys, I really got to get up out of here. I really have to go. I am so tired. It is insane. Now, one Cash App tonight. Chess P says, did you say July 1st, 2023? Why, yes, Chess Piece. It's actually July 3rd. It was published July 3rd, 2023. Well, if y'all don't want me to shut it down, y'all need to start hitting the Cash App so it can get me excited and jolt me out of my sleep. Because right now, my eyelids are getting heavy and I'm ready to go to sleep. I know it's Monday, and it's an off night, and we're not really gonna get the full crowd like we usually get. But Wednesday, hopefully, we will. Barnes says, don't feel guilty calling it a night. Nah, never that, man. Never that. But this is the source for the NESARA information. Rumor mill news, reading room. Something's going on in Brazil. NESARA Jussara announced social media attempting to discredit. Posted by Mr. Ed, Monday, July 3rd, 2023. And in this thread is where you see the pictures of the NESARA Jussara. I feel so beat down and tired, man. So beat down and tired. Chess P says, get rest, Bo. That rain is putting me to sleep too. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. But guys, I appreciate y'all being here. I hope you guys got an understanding now. And remember, Bolsonaro is not the only other world leader that's acting very Trump-esque. Bolsonaro is not the only guy out there that's trying to take political power in order to either destroy and rebuild a proper system or fix the current system. But any political figurehead that attempts to alter the status quo or change the status quo, they come under heavy scrutiny and heavy attack, and that's because the enemy does not want the status quo to change. It's that simple. But yeah, so I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the love, appreciate the support. See you guys back here on Wednesday. We're going to talk more flat earth stuff. We're going to be talking more flat earth stuff. And I got to get that show together because it ties into flat earth is actually ancient cosmology, believe it or not. And the round earth is relatively new compared to the flat earth. So when you hear people say, oh, this new flat earth conspiracy theory, when they refer to the minute they refer to the flat earth as a new thing, they automatically disqualify themselves from the discussion. William says you can call it a night since you're tired. After what happened last night, I'm glad everything is okay, Citizen Man TV. Well, thank you, William. Thank you, William. All right, guys. I got to go. I'm so dog tired, but don't forget, stay away from PayPal. Avoid PayPal at all costs. They'll steal your money, okay? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you guys for sticking around. I'm glad I was actually able to push through and get this part 2 done. So now we have both parts, part 1 and part 2, in sequential order on YouTube and Rumble. So shout out to you guys for making that all possible. And I will see you guys back here, excuse me, on Wednesday. Citizen Man, out.